As a holistic health psychologist and soul healing specialist, probably one of the number one questions or types of questions I get from people are, what is it about these relationships in my life? When is it that I'm going to meet my soulmate? When is it that I'm going to meet my twin flame? When is it that, I'm going to have this immense, wonderful experience and feel partnered for life? And then other questions are, what is it with these relationships? Why can't I get past this? Why can't I understand this? Why is this so dramatic? Why is this turning my life upside down? And I want to dive right in and talk about twin flame relationships. Now, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it is good, and some of it is not really that helpful because it doesn't really teach you why these happen. It teaches you basically that these things exist, and if you've had a twin flame experience, you know it is something extraordinary. You know it is something very different than a everyday kind of relationship, everyday connection that you have. So I'm going to talk about what is a twin flame relationship, and I'm going to tell you what I consider to be the four top reasons why people have those experiences. Twin flames are basically, now there's all this, again, romanticized information out there. There's a story out there that basically it was one soul that split into two. I personally do not believe that because that seems a little strange for me from a logical perspective anyway, but everybody has their own identity. Every soul has their own essence, and their own essence is here to evolve and learn and grow. And if you had this split off part of you that you're constantly trying to find, again, to me, that's a very romanticized version, then you would never be doing the learning and growing on your own. And that's not the case. We are here to learn and evolve as individual souls. So I don't personally really adhere to or appeal to that whole idea that it's one soul that's been split in two. I do, however, believe that it is someone that you resonate with at such a high level and at such a high degree that you really do feel like, whoa, this energy is part of me. This energy is part of who I am. And that in some ways you don't feel complete unless you have had that kind of energy kind of touch your life in one way or another. But to me, again, we are all here to learn and evolve and grow. And so I'm always going to look for the reasons for why things happen. Why is it that we have certain kinds of relationships? Why is it that certain kind of souls come into our lives? And after my own twin flame experience, which was what I used to call excruciatingly exquisite, meaning it was the most difficult, challenging, tumultuous, confusing experience of my life, but it was also exquisite because the immense connection that you can have with another soul is so amazing when you know that it's there. And that's why so many people mistake it for the person that they think they're supposed to be with. And they will go to all lengths to make this work, even though it is harming you in one way or another. Now, luckily, I stepped out of the situation because I knew it was not something that was healthy for me. But at the same time, I also know that there are reasons why these things happen. And literally after my own twin flame experience, I had hundreds of people contacting me in order to figure out what the heck is going on here. What is this relationship? And I personally believe that I have been chosen by the universe for whatever reason to experience certain things so that people can come to me and then I can explain what it is and help them through this situation. So I think my twin flame experience happened just for that reason. Other reasons too, but primarily so I could help others. So again, if I could describe this kind of twin flame relationship, it would be something that feels so immediately connected. Like you have known that energetic soul for as long as you can remember. You know that you've known them in another lifetime. You could talk for hours. You can write for hours. You can do whatever it is that you feel like there's never enough time to catch up with that other soul. And that's what it feels like. It's almost like you're picking up where you left off. You feel like, wow, okay, this person gets me. This person is so connected, and there's an unconditionality about it in the beginning. And I'm going to explain that in a second. But there's just this immense, excruciatingly exquisite connection between you to the point where, again, you know it's an extraordinary kind of relationship. You know there's an extraordinary quality about this. And yet, like I said, a lot of people mistake it for the person they're supposed to be with. So why is it would we have these kinds of connections? Why is it that we would have these kinds of tumultuous things come into our life? Now, I have come up with four main reasons why twin flame relationships might occur. The first one is, and I remember this from my own experience 20 some years ago and how it kind of it came back full circle just a few years ago. My experience with working with twin flame experiences and in my own world is that one or the other or both of the souls that are involved have to be resuscitated in some way. In other words, their lives are just so depleted. Their lives are so just barren that basically the twin flame somehow, again, is orchestrated by the universe, comes in and you connect with that soul because you have to have some form of life breathed into you in some way to keep you afloat or to help you wake up, to help you realize, wow, okay, life is not so dismal after all. And so, number one reason is that one or both of those souls need to be resuscitated at that time. So they need an extraordinary situation to almost shock them, like shock pads, shock you back into life and shock you back into having an experience that you want to live. And I don't mean that someone is suicidal, but I do think that there's a lot of times when I've watched this with clients, I experienced some of this myself, is when I watched when those connections happen, one or both of those souls needs to come back to life, needs something brought into them, needs something to initiate and instigate some major change in their lives to get them back to feeling like they want to be engaged in life. So again, number one is that one or both needs to feel resuscitated. Number two is one or both needs to wake up in one or other way. And in often cases when I have worked with other people, a twin flame experience is what actually wakes people up to the spiritual side of relationships. Now, this is not always the case because if you don't know enough about spirituality, you don't know that something extraordinary is happening. But, there's lots of ways that we wake up. There's, these awakenings come through tragedy, through accidents, to all kinds of things. But when it comes to a twin flame relationship, it's not unusual for one or both of those souls, once they connect, to have an awakening process, to have something that not only resuscitates them, but awakens them to the spiritual side of life. And so, number two, again, is that whole idea of maybe one or both of those individuals needs to awaken in some way. Number three is that those souls might need to come back together to complete some sort of karmic cycle or heal something from a karmic wound from previous lifetimes. And the only way they can do that is to reconnect in the current lifetime. Now, this takes consciousness. So if you have two people that come together and they realize that they are twin flames, it is not easy because oftentimes the circumstances are not such for a person to be able to really cultivate that relationship for whatever reason that might be. And so it can feel very difficult for whoever it is that is kind of there as the innocent bystander, because maybe one, again, or both of those people needs to complete some sort of karmic cycle, become conscious about the past life relationships, become conscious about something that you're supposed to fix in this lifetime that may or may not even have to do with that twin flame, but it might resemble or initiate the exploration about that kind of situation. So it could be, maybe this is how I treated people in the past, but this twin flame that's just come into my life is waking me up to the reason to realize I'm not supposed to treat people in that way anymore. Or I'm not supposed to treat myself poorly. It could be one of those things as well. So number three could possibly be that you need to come back in, meet with this extraordinary relationship, extraordinary soul in your life, collide worlds, so that there's some sort of karmic completion that takes place. Number four is that one or both of those souls. Now, I would say in most cases, when twin flames come in, both souls probably have life lessons that they're supposed to learn from the experience of having connected. And so that's the other thing, is to think about, okay, so if you have had a twin flame experience, if you are having a twin flame experience, what am I learning from this? Am I learning what I'm supposed to? Am I putting up boundaries where I need to? Am I allowing someone to treat me in a way that I do not want to be treated? And is that what you're supposed to be learning? Because sometimes that twin flame is there to disrupt your life or treat you poorly or put you in a bad situation so that you, as your own individual soul, can learn, wow, That's not okay for me. I'm not going to let that happen. And when you don't let that happen, that is the evolutionary part. And sometimes that other soul is there to really disrupt your life in a way that you need to get them out of your life. And that is the life lesson. And so all kinds of different things can happen when you run into a twin flame. They're almost always tumultuous relationships. They're almost always short-lived. They're almost always just touch and go. There's almost always a situation where you have to separate and go do your own thing and learn and grow. And if both parties are able to do their work, you can come back together and possibly have a real relationship. But it's often the case that one soul within the twin flame kind of relationship has already done their work or is already further along than the other soul. And that person kind of stays in this situation too long because they keep hoping the person is going to catch up. But really, when they look back over and over again, you're hitting a wall because that person has not grown into themselves at that point. And so there's so many different dynamics that can happen from a twin flame perspective. And believe me, as a psychologist who does a whole lot of work about relationships, I am so grateful that I understand the true experience of a twin flame experience because I can help guide therapy clients through this. Oftentimes, I will get clients who call for Akashic record readings or past life readings or soul realignment sessions because they want to understand what the heck is going on in these very challenging and tumultuous relationships as well. And luckily, again, I've been through my own, so I can experience this. I can use my own experience to help other people. But again, I'm going to recap this for a minute because when I look at the literature that's out there, they don't always fully explain from a modern time experience. And this is why I often say I bring ancient wisdom to the modern soul. Most of the people who write about twin flame experiences don't really bring practical information for how to maneuver them, how to navigate them, what it is that you're supposed to learn from them. So I'm going to recap this. Like I said, it's like there are four main reasons why twin flame experiences come into our lives. One or both needs to be resuscitated or uplifted in one way or another because their lives have flattened out so much that they just don't have a lot of oomph in them. And when you have that twin flame experience, you have so much energy being just flushed into you that you do feel resuscitated. It's, again, probably like the sense of those shock pads. So one or both needs to be resuscitated. One or both, this is number two, one or both needs to wake up or have an awakening experience in one way or another. Now that awakening could be about relationships or it could be about something else, but that awakening is usually, again, instigated or initiated by a twin flame experience. Number three reason is that one or both needs to complete a karmic pattern or complete a karmic lesson or clear out some sort of karma from previous lifetimes. So that contract that the twin flame souls have had in coming back together is usually there to complete something in one way or another. And the fourth reason that twin flame experiences come to be is that there are life lessons involved. And again, I have never worked with a client who has had a twin flame experience who is not supposed to learn something. And that could be things you don't want to learn, but honestly, we don't always choose what we're supposed to learn. The universe knows much more about what we need to learn than we do sometimes. So, I'm hoping that this is helpful because, and this might even trigger some thoughts for people who have had these relationships in the past that were, very intense. You felt like you really knew this person, but it didn't work out. And you kind of think back as, is that the one that got away? Well, twin flames tend to come and go in people's lives when they need some sort of boost, when they need some sort of energy to, again, either learn something or get out of the doldrums, whatever it might be. But we don't often do that unless we pay attention to what it is that is bringing life into us and breathing that extraordinary energy into us. I would love to hear your comments on this. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you've had a twin flame experience, feel free to share it, or you can contact me if this is resonating for you and you might need some help navigating a situation. I'm happy to help you with this because I think I can guide you through this as well. But, twin flame relationships are not always meant to stay in touch. In fact, I know very few relationships that are actually twin flame relationships. There's a lot of people out there that think that they are twin flames and actually are not, because there's a specific kind of energy shared between twin flame souls that is like no other. And so I think a lot of people mistake twin flames for what I would call a divine mate kind of relationship. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, again, I would love to hear what you have to say about this. I hope this was helpful for you, and more information to come. Again, I am, dedicated to bringing ancient wisdom to the modern soul and help you navigate current life, understanding the soul side of what is going on in the human condition for you. So this is what I'm all about. For more information, go to www.drkatherinet.Kelly.com. And if you would like to work together, contact me. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day.